talk on international relations and geopolitics. And today he will give a session on multipolarity, unipolarity, and hegemony. So let's welcome.
Good evening. Today the lecture is very charged with meaning because I made today in the morning more or less a similar lecture, but half of it. It has taken almost 2 hours. So we need to concentrate because content of this lecture is very dense. So I'm going to present a new approach to international relations. I've made first lecture here on classical and post-positivist theories of international relations in the first lecture. In the second lecture, I've made presentation of the basic principles of geopolitics, and I will use these concepts of international relations theories as well as geopolitics here in order to explain what unipolarity, multipolarity, and hegemony are. But because there is a different audience in the first, second, and third, and the last fourth lecture that will be in the week, so I demand you to concentrate because it will be very dense. So try to follow me. Otherwise you will lose the line. So now we are going to speak about multipolarity, unipolarity, and hegemony. Unipolarity, it is danzi, multipolarity, dozi, hegemony, butian. More or less these are the terms. So first of all, let's establish some relations in order to understand what multipolarity, dozi, Li Luang theory of multipolar world or multipolarity is. We need to understand what is unipolarity. That is very important. So unipolarity or danzi concept is precisely what we have in the concrete politics after the fall of the Soviet Union. That was declared as unipolar moment. And multipolarity, it is the concept or theory, now it is already the theory, that challenges this multipolarity. So there is a kind of opposition or confrontation between unipolar world vision and multipolar world vision. Because unipolarity is based on some theoretical principles. This is geopolitical, ideological, economical, and so on. So the same will be correct for multipolar theory. So multipolar theory, but unipolarity exists, and multipolarity doesn't exist yet. It is in transition, but it is not yet achieved. So we are speaking about something that is in the reality, but something that is ending, and something that is new, that it is something that hasn't yet come or totally realized. So we are in the transition from unipolarity towards multipolarity. We know what unipolarity is, but we don't know what multipolarity will be. So it is open question. That is very passionate to speak about what is going on, not what we have, but what we will have. And it's a little bit futurological perspective. So multipolarity is opposite to unipolarity. But in order to understand the relations between the theories and the concepts, we need to speak a little bit about unipolarity. Danzi. Unipolarity, it is a concept. So, in international relations, there are many, many theories. One of the most famous theory was theory of bipolar world system promoted by Kenneth Waltz. Bipolar, two poles. Capitalist camp and Soviet camp, East and West, and they, according to Waltz, they represented a kind of balance, the system that one pole limited the other, and they cooperate, and their dialogue and confrontation and opposition created this system. So third world was possible because of bipolarity. There was a kind of space between them, so thanks to bipolar system could exist everybody else on the margin of these two general main system of the world. But when the Soviet Union collapsed, there was new idea of unipolarity promoted by some realists in international relations. First of all, Robert Gilpin. Robert Gilpin has proposed, instead of two bipolar systems, plus and minus, for example, for Americans, for the West, plus were they and minus ourselves, Eastern. But for us, vice versa. So not as so much important who was plus and who was minus. Most important, that was the kind of bipolar system. Two poles interacting in a position between themselves. But Robert Gilpin has proposed different concept of a system in international relations. There is the pole, the center, absolute center, a periphery. So there was no more minus or plus. There was a center, a sun, and something that was under rays of sun. So that was completely different concept. And Robert Gilpin has won his theoretical debates with Kenneth Waltz, because Kenneth Waltz supposed that bipolarity in some way will last forever, or almost, because that is more conservative, more stable world system. But Robert Gilpin proposed the possibility of unipolar situation. So unipolarity gained the ground in theoretical debates in the international relations after the collapse of the Soviet Union. That moment precisely was declared unipolar moment. Charles Krauthammer, American strategist, has declared after the fall of the communism that there is unipolar moment. What is unipolar moment? That is the creation of concepts of unipolar system with the pole and the periphery in the concrete reality. But Charles Krauthammer wasn't sure whether it will last forever or it will end in time. So he wasn't sure. Is it the order, unipolar world order, or some temporary situation, or maybe it will end. So he has called unipolar moment very correct term, because after the end of the Soviet Union, there was precisely confirmation of unipolar system. For example, on other level declared by Francis Fukuyama as end of history. There was no confronting poles or systems. There was only one system, liberal capitalist, liberal democracy with market society. That was only one, with the West as recognized by everybody, global leader. So there is the West and the rest. And the rest should follow the West. That was the essence of unipolarity. There is only one pole, one system, global system. That was as well globalization. So unipolarity, that was understanding in the realist term of the same concept as globalization, end of history, or unipolar moment. Interesting that in the beginning of 2000s, this same Charles Krauthammer has declared that maybe unipolar movement has ended, has finished, maybe, after 9/11 attack of Islamic terrorists against New York, World Trade Center, and after the coming of Putin to the power, it seems that unipolar movement is finally not unipolar world order. That something went wrong with unipolarity. Because normally there shouldn't be such thing as 9/11 terrorist attack, because there is no state that could attack the United States. There was no civilization, no political system, no nuclear weapon, nothing structural, nothing symmetric with American power. Only American domination and nothing else. And Russia in that moment was on a very low situation, with Yeltsin, with almost collapsing as well after Soviet Union. So there was a kind of challenge to unipolar system, and after that Putin began to reaffirm Russia as sovereign country. So something went wrong. After, for example, in 2007 Putin has made his speech in Munich challenging this unipolarity precisely in Western hegemony. After that, in 2008, Russia, instead of the support, despite of the support of America to Georgia, has intervened in Northern Ossetia and Abkhazia. And 2014, we've made reunification with Crimea, and after that we have intervened in Syria. And in the parallel, on the other level, there was a huge rise of your country, a Chinese model, as Zhang Weiwei says. China's model, therefore, was a kind of new hegemony appearing on the horizon. So there was something that was against unipolarity, but it is very important that unipolarity prevails still in the global analysis. So unipolarity is ending, but unipolar moment lasts. It is still here. Something is absolutely, it's clear for everybody that something is wrong with unipolarity. That unipolarity is unstable. The unipolarity is in decline, but it is still here. And nothing exists. No other political system or international system exists now. We are living in the ending of unipolarity. That's very important to understand what unipolarity is. Unipolarity includes different aspects. For example, we could divide the meanings of unipolarity into groups of concepts: open or explicit unipolarity, and hidden, secret or implicit unipolarity. What is open unipolarity? That is neoconservatism in the United States and a project for new American century promoted by neocons. They declare that liberal world should rule the world. Liberal countries should prevail and dominate everybody else openly. So America should rule the world and give the example and install the norms to any and culture openly. That is neoconservatism. Neocons. Okay. Next concept. Niall Campbell Ferguson, English scholar in international relations, has declared that we need use the word empire to qualify what is unipolarity. That is modern or postmodern empire, Western empire, that should dominate all the planet. And Ferguson has said, don't hesitate to use the word. This word was demonized, was criticized, but now we are living in the empire. There is metropolis, the center of this empire, that is the Western world, the rich north, and there are the other provinces of this empire that should be ruled from the center. So let us speak about empire. Western, postmodern, global, liberal, capitalist, new colonial empire. In all senses. That is as well open, explicit unipolarity, how it is presented in the international relation debates. Pentagon vision. It is clear that if we take a look on the map, strategical map of the planet, we will see all around, except China, Russia, American military bases, all around. That is concrete manifestation of this unipolarity. So they try, United States try to control Pacific, they try to control Asia, they try to control Europe, Africa, Arab world, with NATO. So it is, Pentagon vision is still absolutely unipolar. How America should control the world. And American national interests and American security is considered by Pentagon as universal. That is universal value. To defend American interests, it's your duty, all of you and us, in their vision. So everybody who challenges American domination are terrorists, are very dangerous. Theoretically or practically, everybody every man or movement or country who doesn't agree with this Pentagon's vision are the enemies. So they should be crushed. So that is open unipolarity. Regarding Europe, it is translated in Atlanticism, idea represented in NATO. NATO is the European world under the control, military control of NATO, of United States. But that is one of the expression of this unipolarity. NATO is a unipolar organization that tries to control the world for the benefit of only one pole. That is explicit, open, manifest unipolarity. There is the other, implicit. We can call it hidden or secret unipolarity. It is globalism, multilateralism, and no polarity, so-called no polarity. The concept promoted by the chief of CFR group, very important political think tank in the United States, globalist. So, more or less, roughly, we are calling that globalization. What means globalization? Globalization means that all systems and societies and peoples and countries in the world will accept the Western way of progress, development, human rights, democracy, and liberty. Everybody will accept that. And when it happens, there will be no great difference between, we are speaking about the United States, or about Russia, or China, or Africa. Everybody will be equal. Equal, but in what sense equal? Everybody will become Americans, Western, liberal democracy, human rights, everybody will like them. It is very special globalism. It is not dialogue between countries, cultures, civilization. For example, Russian proposed something, Russian as value, Chinese, China identity. No, there should not be any collective identity in this concept of globalization. Everybody should be equal because everybody should be only individuals. No cultures, no religions, no ethnic groups. everybody will be equal as individuals, as statistical individuals. That is precisely human rights idea. Human rights idea, it's idea to put together citizen and the man. So every man is already citizen. So there is no country, there are no nations, there is only global society or global civil society instead of collective identity of nations, countries, religions, and so on. That is globalization. It is not openly unipolar, because nobody, globalists don't say, America will rule the world, or no, they say no. You will be, you citizens of the world will rule the world. Global government, where everybody can participate, will rule the world. Global world government, not America, not the West. Everything will be totally equal, but if you accept our system, if you accept liberalism, democracy, progressivism, human rights, individualism, and our culture, you will be no more treated in the hierarchical manner, because you will be, every one of you will become world citizen. World citizen, cosmopolitanism is the program. It is unipolar on the level of the values. And that is the project, but that is pure unipolarity, but in a very special implicit sense. Multilateralism, that is geopolitical application of globalism. So multilateralism, it is the form of unipolarity, but it consists in the proposition from United States to rule the world with United States and being controlled by United States in the process of ruling the world. So there is a kind of sharing responsibility for rule the world from some proxies of United States. Multipolarity, and we will later, I will show the map of multilateralism. Multilateralism is precisely that. So give to the other the responsibility to rule the world with United States as proxies, as to be kind of vassals of United States. And there are different countries who want to do that, because they will have some special preferences in global world system. So everything here is different versions of unipolarity. So strategical unipolarity is Atlanticism, and the geopolitical terms sea power, full spectrum domination doctrine that affirms that in order to dominate the world totally, the West should not only use hard power, the military power, but as well soft power, culture, technology, network services, networks, social services, and they should enter inside of other society, not only control them from outside. So that is idea of full spectrum domination. Domination in the air, domination in the cosmos, in the space, cosmic space, domination on the sea, domination on the land, but what most important, domination inside of human brains. So that is the project of the control of human behavior, human psychology, human being, human mind, by coding them through different methodologies. And that is strategical unipolarity, center-periphery structure. Here is geopolitical vision of unipolarity. The center, United States, and classical geopolitical map, how the sea should control the land. Sea power should control the land power. Land power here, half on sea power here, the control of the seas and oceans, and how from the seas and oceans the sea power United States and global West should control land power. The idea is fight for this land, for Rimland. Rimland is the zone between land power and sea power, coastal zone. So that is classical vision, and that still is the main basic map of Pentagon. The Pentagon understands the world more or less with this map, explained, and here there are the military bases of United States, because they try by that situation to control the heartland. China belongs to the coastal area, to the Rimland, so it is considered to be neither the radical enemy but not the friend. It is the zone to conquer and control in that region. That is implicit unipolarity. We have spoken about that. That is a kind of multilateralism. Multilateralism, quite different and opposite to multipolarity. Multilateralism. Multilateralism, there is the main power, global hegemony, and two main satellites of global hegemony, Europe and China. Europe is inscribed, is embedded in the NATO structure, and for China, globalist has proposed J2 project. So be with us, and we will share with you some responsibility to rule the world. Hillary Clinton came to Beijing in order to propose that to Chinese government. So that is more or less idea how the world will be if unipolarity and multilateralism will prevail. In the other space, there should be chaos. There should be not pro-American governments, because they don't need pro-American governments. Because pro-American governments, it's too difficult to manage, and they have destroyed pro-American governments in Tunisia or Egypt. They don't care anymore. You are pro-American or anti-American, because you should all follow us Americans, all better you will be die in the bloody chaos. And they have started the bloody chaos in Northern Africa already, promoting colored revolution, supporting all kinds of terrorist groups in order to have the reason to intervene in this chaotic. Because, for example, here are the terrorists. Oh, terrorists, Bin Laden, we are coming here. We are bombing this country. Oh no, Iraq was the wrong goal. We will attack Libya. Oh no, there was no weapon of mass destruction. We will attack Iraq or Afghanistan because somewhere Bin Laden is hiding, or someone ISIS is present. So creating the chaos in this region, they will, this unipolarity conserve its power. And Russia has the same destiny. If we read carefully the book of Zbigniew Brzezinski, Grand Chessboard, he has written that Russia should be turned into the Balkan. That Russia should be Balkanized, transformed in the conflict of different ethnic, religious groups. So that it is more or less implicit unipolarity. That is the map of CFR. So Council on Foreign Relations is dealing with this map. Pentagon was the previous one. There is open multipolarity, and then there are two parties in the United States and globalist global government, or so-called global government. Unipolar, explicitly unipolar, and implicitly unipolar. So there is soft, that is soft version, and previous map is hard version. The hoax and the pigeons. So there is ideological unipolarity. Universalism of Western values. It is ideological unipolarity. Human rights ideology. The concept human versus citizen. The concept of human in the human rights theory, it's against national state and against the concept of citizen. Because if you say the human being has the same rights as citizen, you destroy citizenship. There is no more citizens, no more sense. So that migration and defense of migration of migrants, it is not only purely humanitarian, it is ideological. It is idea to destroy the concept of citizenship and nationality and the state. That is one of the main goals of so-called human rights movement. It is purely ideological. Human rights theory is as much ideological as Marxism or National Socialism. It is propaganda, pure propaganda, nothing humanitarian. So if you share human rights value, you are globalist on one side. So you share the ideology. It is absolutely the racism in National Socialism or communism or proletarian position in the classical Marxism. So human rights is liberal ideology. It is not neutral. It is not self-evident. It is ideology, pure ideology. As, for example, belongingness to the Aryan race or to capitalist or proletarian class. So if you are in favor of human rights, you are already totally controlled by ideology. So the construction of nation states, that is the main goal of liberalism in international relations. Globalization and globalism. Globalization is technological and economical process, and globalism is ideology of unification of humanity under world government. They are different, but they are not in contradiction. So you are promoting the same technology and economy, and at the same time you are preparing the ground for political integration. So from globalization to globalism is one step. There are two-level process. You could promote a theory that we need global government in order to avoid the war and destruction of humanity and all the other ideological concepts, or you could put in the praxis without expecting that everybody will accept this theory. So globalism and globalization, two different things, but a kind of converging processes. Liberalism in international relations is theoretically basis for this ideological unipolarity. If you're liberal in international relations, it is a kind of ideology as well. So, and the idea of world government, it is not the obsession of conspiracy theories. It is the part of classical manual in international relations. If you carefully read any manual on international relations, you will discover that liberalism in international relations affirms that should be world government. That should be supranational system that will replace in the future, in the progress of the relation, in order to secure the peace, world government. So that is not conspiracy theory. It is purely theoretical term from international relations as established discipline. So global government is the part of it. Next, hegemony. Hegemony has different meanings. First of all, there is strategical dimension of hegemony. This Greek word means just leadership. Hegemon, that is leader and nothing else. So leading force, leading power. Hegemony could be understood and red as unipolarity, and as in Gilpin's system. It's clear. Hegemony, if we use this word in singular, hegemony, one hegemony, with one hegemony, one and only. When we are speaking about one hegemony, we are speaking, or when we are speaking about one empire, and not about hegemonies or empires and worlds, we are speaking about unipolarity. So, in the singular, hegemony represents the concept of the dominating pole, that is Western pole. Relative hegemony. Interesting concept of Mearsheimer, the specialist in the international relations, American, who tries to make a kind of related approach to the hegemony. So, according to Mearsheimer, there is no clear or abstract law whether we should have one hegemony or many hegemonies, or few of them. So it is open questions, and according to Mearsheimer, let us consider hegemony as existing phenomenon without predicting. There will be only one or two or few or three or four. Let's use this term technically. Globalist vision. So in that case, hegemony acquires purely ideological dimension. It is not leadership in the power and military and strategical domination, but it is ideological, cultural domination of value. If you accept certain values or certain cultural patterns, so you are under hegemony already, because you are following the rules established not by you, but so-called universal rules, but universal in the sense that the West was capable, was able to impose on everybody else these rules. Neoconservative version is the same as unipolarity, strategical, open, explicit unipolarity, hegemony, American hegemony, empire, or Trump version of new liberal order. It's a little bit less defined, it is not so much scientific, but Trump says now, let's make America great again. What he means, nobody knows, because it is against globalist version. He criticizes globalism. It is not so much neoconservative version, because he was criticized during his electoral campaign by neocons very severely. So it is a rather rare hegemony, and maybe it is not hegemony at all. So nobody knows. Trump uses some concept with no clear meaning. That is very, very important, because it could serve as a kind of translation from hegemonic order to post-hegemonic. So very interesting. So Trump is not so easy to read his intention. So the main question and the problem of hegemony is, or there is one hegemony, or there are hegemonies. So the same question is, or whether there is civilization, how this pronounced, or civilizations, and the plural. That's important, but I think that in Chinese there are no such difference from plural and singular. But it's very important to understand, nevertheless, that this letter at the end of the world changes everything. Everything. enemy or foe or friend, you are black or white, you yin or yang, everything is here. If there is civilization, it got one ideology. If there are civilizations with S, there is completely different and opposite ideology and worldview. This latter is essential if we recognize the multitude of civilizations or hegemonies. So it is one thing. If you consider that there is only one civilization and only one hegemony or only one empire, you are on other side. So one letter, two world vision, two completely different and opposite ideologies. So hierarchy in the West mind is very important. This, in the Western mind, there is implicit hierarchy dealing with different kinds of societies, or in the historical way, or in the international relations. So there is hierarchy in international relations or in cultural sense. All the types of these societies in the West are clearly divided in three categories. Civilization without S, it is the West. West is civilization. Barbarity, it is the East. And savagery, that is the South. So civilization is good, barbarity is not so much so good, but maybe it will be. There is some order. Civilization is perfect order. Barbarity is semi-order, quasi-order, half-order, and savagery, no order at all. Before the end of the Second World War, before the racist National Socialism, the West used metaphor of the skin in order to explain what is this hierarchy. So civilization was white, barbarity was yellow, and savagery was black. And that was normative racist attitude. But when, after the end of the Third Reich, it was impossible to use anymore this racist approach. Everybody became internationalists. So this racist mark was abolished and forgotten. But the sense of the hierarchy is the same, but in the other terms. For example, there is technologically developed West with human rights, with liberalism, with individualism, with security, social security. We see how great social security is in Paris in the last day in the Yellow West revolt. But nevertheless, it is a kind of law. You could not challenge it. There is the most developed society, that is Western civilized society. There are second world. Second world, there are BRIC countries, China, Russia, India, some Pacific tiger, new tiger of Pacific region, Latin America. They are trying to, or Southern Africa, they are trying to keep with the West, to have the same standards, but still on the in the lane. So, and there are third world. The third world country, they could not enter in the civilization. Without biological racism, we have the same concept of racism and this distinction. The same, because there is only one idea, only one civilization, only one example, only one norm, the West. There is something that's corruption, totalitarianism, authoritarianism that is under West, or second-hand West. It is Russia, China, other countries. That is kind of models, the patterns, and there is something outside of civilization. totally. So that's absolute periphery. In the Wallerstein's doctrine, that is the core or the rich north. There is semi-periphery and there is periphery in Wallerstein's concept. So there, everywhere, we are dealing with this hierarchy. Today, without racism, but racism is embedded in such attitude. If we consider that concept carefully, we could deconstruct all discourses of international relations on the West. And John Hobson, in his book, Eurocentric Concept in International Relations, explains that perfectly. I strongly recommend the book. John Hobson. Hobson, Eurocentric Tendency in World Politics or International Relations. So, the same with civilizations. The concept of civilizations is based, civilizations with us, so HegemonieS, is based on the idea that there are many civilizations, not only Western, but the other. And the other civilizations are not, they are neither barbarity nor savagery. They are civilizations, but of different kinds. That changes everything. If we are dealing not with the barbarity of under civilization, but with other civilization, so the West loses its normative and universalist meaning. It is one of the possible different civilizations. This hierarchy is destroyed, is deconstructed immediately, because nobody can say you are more developed or lesser developed. There is no common universal measure. If you consider that living in the forest with the animals and without technical devices, it is your choice and destiny. You have all the rights to do so, and we could not teach you how to behave. That is very humanistic attitude if we can accept the civilizations. But immediately, all the system, colonial system, Western system, all the hegemony, all unipolarity explodes immediately, because we are losing the ground of international relations. There is a total decolonization of the world. That is very important. Only one letter. If we accept the existence of civilizations and if we don't insist on the necessity to these different civilizations to become the one civilization. So civilization can be in that case Western or non-Western. There could not be any hierarchy between civilization. So any civilization are so-called equal. Not equal in the sense that they are totally similar, but their difference could not be put in the taxonomy, in the hierarchy, in the hierarchical system. So we need to accept them as existing not only in different spaces, but having different times, different ontologies, different anthropologies. So we can judge one civilization by the criteria taken from the other civilization. So you, in your case, Chinese could think, for example, some rights or in Christianity or in a liberal society or in African tribes disgusting or not acceptable. And you will treat them from Chinese point of view. The same for them. They could find something completely unacceptable in your civilization or in ours. And nobody could say, you are wrong, we are good guys, and you are bad guys. There are no such, between the civilizations, there are no unique universal criteria. So we need to accept this this diversity in a positive way. without final solution. Let it be like it is. But that means total, absolute epistemological revolution against Western universities. And that demands decolorization. So, there is a part of Gramsci. Maybe it will be too much. Should I speak about Gramsci, or I will go directly to multipolarity? Maybe some words. You know Gramsci here. Antonio Gramsci. He was Marxist philosopher. His idea of hegemony was very interesting. He used the term hegemony in the ideological sense and how Marxists, who was he is presumed to be materialist, and he should theoretically explain everything by economics and economical relations, how he can arrive to the concept of ideological understanding of hegemony, as capitalism as hegemony. So, Gramsci proposed very interesting vision, maybe for Chinese it is very important. So, economics is in the basis, politics is on the top. So, according to Marx, economics is essential for the politics, and politics is only expression of economics. So, the higher level of the society is expression of the lower level. But when Gramsci analyzed Soviet experience, Leninism, the phenomenon of Leninism, he has arrived to the conclusion that in Russian Empire there was no proletarian class at all. So our country, Russia, in the beginning of the 20th century wasn't industrialized. We had no proletarian class. So a revolution, from Marx's point of view, purely Marxism, was impossible. And Marx with Engels, they affirmed exactly the same thing, that in Russia or in the East, before their full capitalization, including through colonial experience, and Marx was very positive. He was in favor of colonization because it has brought capitalism in the pre-capitalist society and prepared the by this way future proletarian revolution. But what was the Leninism? How proletarian revolution was possible without proletarian class? And Gramsci has explained it by his theory that sometimes the will of political group, very small group, can go ahead of economical process. So in some situation, political will could replace economical basis, and after that transform economy in order to satisfy all the conditions of Marxism, to create artificially proletarian class from the peasants. The other way was of Mao theory, who has recognized against Marx the peasantry as the revolutionary class. But it was much more honest, much sincere in case of Mao, much less sincere and honest in the case of Lenin. But Gramsci has understood very well what was going on in the Russia. And after, Gramsci has developed, prolonged this idea. So sometimes, affirmed Gramsci, culture is more important than politics. So you could be active in the culture if you're cultural elite, and not being politically linked to the political proletarian communist party, and without no relations to the economics, absolutely with no relation, you could create a kind of historical pact. If intellectual could create historical pact, whether with capital, and he will serve the capital, despite of his being poor, for example, and not not being the part of bourgeois class. You can serve to the capital in big capitals by in your mind, or being rich and prosperous and being totally the part of this bourgeois system. You being intellectual, you are free to choose the worker class and fight against capitalism. So interesting concept. Without party, culture has the same autonomy over the politics as politics has over economics. That was Gramsci. Very interesting. That is maybe the case of China. You are using capitalism, but in order to promote your society and your identity. So, and hegemony in that Gramscian in Gramsci means that the West and the global capitalism try to use not only market society, but not only political expression, political democracy and parliamentarian system, but as well the culture. And precisely those intellectuals who make the historical pact with the capital are the worst. So the hegemony precisely is not here, but here. So hegemony is first of all cultural phenomenon. So it is a kind of not political ideology, it is metaphysical decision. You can be in favor of capitalism as a system, as a kind of metaphysical principle of total liberation of individual from any kind of collective identities, or you could choose fidelity to the worker class, to country, to society, to identity. And it is up to you. Nothing could oblige human being to serve political or economical interests. So, according to Gramsci, the intellectual that represent all society, because everybody, according to Gramsci, is a little bit intellectual. But intellectuals, the real intellectuals, they represent the integrity of the human society. Because everybody can think a little bit, but intellectuals, they are professional thinkers. So, but you could not think, being intellectual, outside of the main metaphysical choice between capital and worker class. That is the idea of Gramsci. Very, very important. So hegemony is first of all metaphysical principle. So you could be on the side of hegemony, living in socialist society, being poor or member of Communist Party. Because to choose hegemony, it is inner orientation. And hegemony penetrates in the society not only with political or economical structures. It penetrates first of all in the minds, in the hearts. So hegemony is very special things in Gramsci, is cultural thing. So it is a kind of virus, metaphysical virus. And if hegemony is here, it is a kind of metaphysical liberalism. So you start to work in favor of hegemony against everything else. So Caesarism is too difficult. Multipolarity, finally, I know, but finally we have arrived to the main topic. So, multipolarity and meaning of the concept. In order to clarify what multipolarity is, we need to establish some opposition, the pairs of opposition. So multipolarity is against unipolarity. Multipolarity is against globalism. Multipolarity is against multilateralism. That's a very important point. I have already explained why. Multipolarity is against hegemony in singular. Multipolarity is against hegemony on the three levels. Against hegemony as strategical hegemony, against, in other terms, American domination, military domination of the world. So we are against American bases, military bases, everywhere in the world, except American soil. America for Americans. Maybe that Trump has meant. America for Americans. So American bases, Yankee, go home. Establish your military bases. Defend your country. It needs you. So, but ends with everything. Everybody is free from now to go home. All Yankees. So this strategic hegemony, multipolarity is against hegemony as ideological hegemony, as globalization, liberalism, human rights, and so on. Multipolarity is against hegemony in Gramsci concept as metaphysical hegemony of this historical pact made by organic intellectual. And the last definition, multipolarity is pluriversum. The concept introduced by Carl Schmitt, pluriversum. It is not universalism. It is universalism is there is one unique concept of norms and values. Pluriversum, it is free movement and different direction without one measure for every type of society. Multipolarity in geopolitics deals with Carl Schmitt's concept of big spaces, goes round. And here we become the concept of pole, the pole in multipolarity. So the pole is D. And how we define the pole, Z? The pole is big space and civilization. So the pole is not only strategical or political concept. It is linked to the civilization as a culture or special type of society with special values. But at the same time, it is not only culture, but as well strategical space. So in the concept of pole, we have both meanings, the power and the idea. Ideological level, the cultural, and the military force. So it is at the same time inscribed the pole in the space and political geography, but as well in cultural geography. So here we see some very approximative map of different big spaces. That should be or could be the pole of multipolar world order. Some of them are already the poles. For example, United States of America, American poles are certainly existent. European big space can exist. It has many possibilities to become once independent pole. China is certainly the main pretendant for the independent pole, but Russia, Putin's Russia at least, is something as well that tries to be the pole, so acts independently from the other, and that is clear enough in Russian sovereignty regained in time of Putin. And there are, for example, Indian great space that economically and demographically India has a kind of possibility to become such a pole. Latin America thinks in the same terms. Islamic world tries, at least on the theoretical level, to become the pole as well. Africa is less developed, and New Pacific, big space, less developed as all other. Not developed in the sense of culture or civilization. They have their own great civilization, but as a pole with power, the power lack them. So they could become
the other poles could become the real poles in the future, in the multipolar system. But that is the map of the multipolar world order. I have shown already the maps of globalists, Pentagon maps, CFR maps. It is Russian map of the situation. There are, but what is important in the practical level? What we have now, or what we will have tomorrow. Now we still don't have that. But what it is a kind of aspiration, multipolarity. We see more or less three poles accepted, more or less accepted in the multilateralist globalist version. American zone, European zone, Chinese zone. But we have seen that multilateralist approach or hidden unipolarity think that there should be chaos, and there should be chaos, and everywhere outside. So the majority of the experts and political analysts of the West who are totally biased, because the science of international relations is totally biased, it's Eurocentric. Before being accepted in the academic society, you should conclude your pact with capital. Outside, they try to use this Gramscian concept as well. So they don't let enter in this academy person who don't share their Western-centric vision. One Canadian guy, Jewish guy, Michael Millerman, has made philosophical thesis on my writings, idea, and he was threatened to be thrown out from academical field in the all Western university because he treated in neutral way my ideas, not blame them. So he didn't, that was not apology of my ideas, that was just philosophical analysis, more or less balanced and neutral. But he was threatened by academical society to be thrown out, because if you are on the Western side, you should only criticize and demonize the opponents. That is the normal rule. So, in the mainstream political analysis, there are no recognition of this fourth pole. That's very important. That is, this fourth pole, Eurasia in the future, is absent in all future description of the reality. There are different versions how the fate, the destiny of Europe will be, how China will behave, will it become or not the main enemy of the United States with its rise. But there are many details different, and the different points are accepted. But when they approach Eurasia and Russia, there is univocally decision of all the scholars, no Russia, no this fourth pole, because if there is this fourth pole today, every situation of the world order is changed. It is not bipolar world order, not at all, because Russia is weak. Russia has lost half of our territory and population after the fall of the Soviet Union. We are in a very bad state. But with us, as a pole, the meaning of China, the meaning of Europe, and the possibility to all other countries and civilizations to affirm themselves as independent poles is gained. So that is crucial point. Russia, once more in the history, is in the right place in the right time. So that is the key problem for multipolarity. Because if we say, we accept, there is no more Russia, there is Balkanized chaotic territory, as was more or less in the Yeltsin's time. So we have unipolarity, hegemony, globalization, China and Europe as proxies of the West and the multilateral world vision. With this fourth pole, we have completely different situation, because thanks to existing of this fourth pole that could not be universal, that could not be dominating the kind of hegemony over China or Europe. We just cannot. We have no universal ideology. We have no ideology at all in Russia. So our weakness, it could be used in our favor. Because now we are in a position when we can save Russia, only saving the other, Europe and China, concretely. Saving from Western domination. Without this, we cannot assure our future. That is purely pragmatic vision. So, with this fourth pole, we have real multipolarity, with independence over Latin America, possible independence of Islamic world, possible independence of African world, and India, and everybody acquire a chance to be transformed in the pole and defend its own civilization. Not Russia. Russia doesn't propose this time neither colonialism as in Tsarist time, nor some ideology. We just want to defend ourselves as civilization, different from Eastern or from Western, because in the concept of multipolarity, Russia is not country, Western country. It is independent civilization that is partly Western, partly Eastern, but neither Eastern nor Western. It's particular Russian civilization. But acceptance of this fourth pole changed all the picture. So now we have multipolarity. That is the map of multipolar future, because starting with these four poles, we can go further and propose the special role to India, to Islamic world, to Latin America. More or less that is represented in BRICS, this multipolarity. So now here we see the difference between multipolar map and multilateral map. Completely different approaches. So I'm calling this more than three polar world, or 4+, as a precise line, dividing line between two world order that can be established in the future. So now we are in transition. There is one future, there is other. We are at the bifurcation point. We could go that way, we could go that way. But nothing is granted. We are living in the ending unipolarity, but we didn't create yet multipolar world order. We are in transition, and this process is open. So it could be successful, or it could be unsuccessful. So we are here precisely between, and nothing is granted. So this state of things is more or less consciously understood by some groups in the world, by some academic groups. And we can call that multipolar world theory. here I have my book in Russia that is called Theory of Multipolar World. It is translated into French, now is processed to be published in English. It's translated in Portuguese, different languages, as well in Spanish. So that is the theory that tries to put all these elements that I have explained together. There is Eurasianism. Eurasianism as well is developed by our group as a kind of political philosophy that insists that Russia is not country but is civilization. And as well is the part of multipolarity. And fourth political theory, it is the other concept, our theory, developed as well by us in Russia, with French and Italian groups of intellectuals that invite to overcome classical Western political ideology. Liberalism, communism, and fascism. Fourth political theory invites to go beyond liberalism and to be anti-liberal, but not to be at the same time neither communist, nor fascist, nor nationalist. So that is outside of that. Or because fourth political theory doesn't recognize universalism of the modern West. So for us, that is invitation to to make the Europe and the West more provincial. It is province of the world, and not the center. One of the provinces. There is no center in this multipolarity. So there are many centers, many provinces. And fourth political theory is political expression of this multipolarity. In China, Professor Zhao Tingyang, in his concept, Jiangxia Jixi, develops the concept of special Chinese, as well Chinese model, as not only pure domination by the force or strength, but Wang Dao, the concept of moral, kind of ethical hegemony, and not only that concept of Wang Dao describes not only China as a state, but as well the other countries that are under influence of China, and not necessarily in direct hegemonic way as in Badao hegemony. So very interesting, a very multipolar approach of Chinese scholars. Yang Xuetong, he is realist in international relations, but as well his defense of Chinese identity can be regarded as the part of this multipolar. But at the same time, he challenged the concept Z, the pole, and prefers to speak about yuan. But it is as well a part of this. Your famous Zhang Weiwei, defending China model, very important form, because it is defense of particularity of China's way of development. It is a kind of defense of the Chinese identity and Chinese way. And Qin Ya-Jing, who applies the concept of Yijing to the international relations. So different interactions, casual or ordered. So there is a kind of game based on different factors that could be summarized in the traditional Chinese the divination system. So very interesting. In Europe, there is New Right school, New Right, European New Right. It is anti-liberal and anti-capitalist New Right. It is very special. It is not classical or American New Right that is liberal or British New Right. It is European New Right that is anti-liberal and anti-capitalist. but traditionalists. Alain de Benoit is philosopher, main representative of this school, and they develop precisely multipolar vision where Europe should be independent pole, totally independent from United States of America and very friendly to Russia. So they promote that in a theoretical way in the concept of pluriversal. They are followers of Carl Schmitt and very influential and very interesting group of thinkers, Alain de Benoit. In Latin America, there are different multipolar schools. The theory of foundational non-subordination promoted by Marcelo Gullo Amadeo in Argentine, meridionalism, the regard from the South, global South, as well multipolar and very close to Eurasianist vision of André Martin in Brazil, or Norberto Ceresoli, who was left Peronist and very influential on Hugo Chavez. He was the main ideologue of Hugo Chavez, left Peronism and the partisan of unification of the Latin American space. So there are, but interesting that there are theories of multipolarity, precisely where are the possible poles. What we see, Russia, that tries to develop multipolarity and affirm herself as a pole. China, as independent and trying to be more and more independent from the Western hegemony. Europe, that tries to challenge Atlanticism, unipolarity, and American domination, and Latin America. What we lack? It is strange. We lack Islamic concept of multipolar world. We have only caricature in Salafi version of Caliphate that should be global, and that is impossible, and that is not theoretically explored. But normal version of affirmation of Islamic identity, accepting the reality of world, lack. I don't know why. So my translated in Turkish, in Persian, and Arabic, there is huge interest for that. But I have remarked that there are no such, maybe I have missed something, but I don't know serious theoretical constructions defending independence of Islamic civilization. Everybody in Islam is in favor of that. But I'm speaking now not of the mood in Islamic world, but on theoretical construction. So it is strange that there are no such concepts or theories. And in India pretends to be very, very powerful hegemony in the southern Asia, but no text. Interesting. It's very, very, very profound, very, very metaphysically developed civilization, but now there is no sign of theories of multipolarity. So, theory of multipolar world. Multipolar approach challenges Eurocentric modernity, universalism, hegemony, is based on the presumption of multitude of civilizations and refuses hierarchy of them. Now it is all, everything clear, I hope. Multipolar approach is based on anthropological pluralism, so accepting of the differences of human society, and positive evaluation of diversity, and new reading of the concept of other. Other is not the same or less than the same. Other is other. It's absolutely unknown for the West. And the West is, or other is worse than ourselves in the traditional racist colonial attitude or liberal attitude. The other is the same as ourselves. When they the third definition of other lack in the West. So globalists, they say, oh, the other are exactly as ourselves, and racists and colonialists, nationalists, they say, oh no, we're better. But nowhere there is other. Nowhere, because they are totally obsessed by themselves. In hyper-egoist attitude. They could judge the other only or worse or the same. But where is the other? The meaning of the other is lost. The other is other. It's not the same or the worse. The other is completely different concept. And the West could not acquire this instead of all the efforts. So the concept of other is important. So it is theory of multipolar world is anti-Eurocentric and the project of re-provincialization of Europe and return to pre-Columbian vision. If we regard pre-Columbian vision, we immediately discover that there was perfect world order. There was no colonialism, no Western domination. There were traditional empires, Iranian Empire, Shia Empire, Ottoman Empire, Russian Empire, Chinese Empire, Arab Empire, Western Empire. Everybody was imperfect from civilizational point of view. So, but the Western modernity has imposed colonialism and hegemony on the planet. So we need and separation of America and Europe, that is the part of multipolar world, is as well a kind of return to pre-Columbian time. It's very important because it was possible. And now, in present day, in Syria, the ancient empire re-emerge. We see Iran on the growth, we see Turkey on the growth, we see Russia, and we see China. So this re-emergence of the ancient empire in the sign, that is the sign of return to the pre-Columbian world. So theory of multipolar world is anti-modern because modernity is Western. We could say that we propose alternative modernity or alter modernity, but we don't agree that modernity is destined. Modernity was a choice of part of civilization, of the Western society, and that has led to catastrophe. Maybe it was the part of the destiny, historical destiny of the West, but it was not our destiny. Modernity is Western concept. And here, theory of multipolar world rejects the principles of enlightenment as something universal. Enlightenment is optional. So here I suggest reading of René Guénon, French author, and Julius Evola. René Guénon was converted in Islam in Cairo. He was French-born Catholic philosopher who has entered in the Sufi order and lived all his life in Cairo, in Egypt. Very interesting author, the greatest author. He was founder of traditional school with radical criticism of modernity and Western universalism. And theory of multipolar world is counter-hegemony in strategical and in Gramscian sense. So theory of multipolar worlds regards main actor not state but civilization. Relations between civilization are considered in the more or less in the realist perspective, but not the difference between realism and theory of multipolar world consists in the main aspect that this multipolar world theory deals with the civilizations and big spaces, not with the states. The difference is classical realism deals with the states, but it affirms sovereignty. In the multipolar world theory, there is the shift from sovereignty of the state to the sovereignty of civilization. And after that, we could apply freely realism. The difference of the subject. So the pole, as I have said, D, is big space plus civilization. Geopolitics of multipolarity. Now let us shift in understanding of geopolitics. Classical geopolitics thinks there is sea power represented by the West and land power represented by the heartland, Russia. Now, sea power in the geopolitics of multipolarity is the same. It is unipolarity, hegemony, and globalism, the West, sea power. But land power is no more only heartland. Land power is all system of poles, except the United States. So everybody is heartland in some symbolical sense. So it is not bipolar geopolitics. It's multipolar geopolitics. Consider land power, traditional civilization, because the land, in Carl Schmitt's interpretation, is first of all tradition and roots and fixed space that is civilizational living space. That is very important. There is the change of the content of the concept of the land power in multipolar world version of geopolitics. So here we see civilizations. They correspond more or less with the big spaces and the strategical analysis. So Eurasianism is part of it, and for political theory as well. That's the end of the lecture. Thank you very much. So now I can answer the questions.
I have three very short questions. The first one is that how do you divide the so-called, different zones? For example, for those Islamic zones, you divide it by religion, but for China, you simply divide it by culture. Secondly, how do you deal with those endangered states at the border of two different zones? Things like Dugin, different states will just have conflicts there, and and my third question is that this is also about how do you deal with those countries that different cultures are intertwined together, and those borders was not forming